This lens is not perfect. Some things they've now fixed, some things are always going to be a bit of a pain. The Leica Summicron 35mm f2 version 1 replica. I love it, but I hate it at the same time. Today we're talking about the Light Lens Lab replica of the 35mm f2 8 element or 8E lens. I'm going to cover the rigid and the collapsible, and hopefully everything you need to know, sample photos from both lenses, and then stay with me and I'll explain some of the things that I've got laid out on the table for you. I'm kind of like super happy but super sad at the same time, frustrated. Let me explain. Hey guys, Matt here from MrLeica.com. So back earlier in 2023, I bought the Light Lens Lab 35f2 together with the Elcan and the Speed Pancro. Taking it to Poland, Czech Republic, Vegas, up to Italy, and it's been on most of my London Leica workshops. I mentioned workshops because I own the collapsible version, but as some of you may know, there's also a rigid version. I've been putting off this video for a few months because I was tempted to buy the rigid version so I could give you a side-by-side comparison, because I thought that the rigid would probably be better than the collapsible that I've got. So I was teaching in London yesterday, and a nice guy called Larry flew in from the US, and he just happened to have the 8-element rigid lens with him. So with that, thanks to Larry, I can now share the pros and cons of both the rigid version and the collapsible version. So first, if we step back a bit, as mentioned, you can buy the rigid version. They're available in like a screw mount, meaning it will fit screw mount cameras such as these Barnax, and also like a M mount. There's also the collapsible version, which is screw mount only, but can use an LTM to M adapter ring, which will then allow you to use it on your Leica M cameras. The first question I often get when it comes to any of my collapsible lenses is, Matt, can I safely collapse the lens on my Leica camera or Voigtlander camera, Bessa or whatever? I've got all the cameras out here to show you, and yes, you can safely collapse the collapsible 35 f2 8-element lens on M cameras, on SL cameras, on CL cameras. Optically, as the name suggests, the Light Lens Lab guys have tried to do an exact replica as near as they can of the original version 1 Leica Summicron f2. That means it's 8 elements in 6 groups, and the rigid one has got a 39mm filter size, the same as 35mm f2 Summicron Leica lenses. The collapsible version focuses to 0.5 meters minimum focus distance, where the rigid only focuses to 0.7 meters. 0.5 meters range around a couple from 0.7 meters, if you're wondering. And then in terms of size, the Leica Summicron lenses are really small. I still need to do a full review on a 35mm Leica Summicron lens. Peter Coulson kindly lent me his lens when we were traveling around Europe earlier this summer, and I've got all the test photos. And so if you want to see that video, hit subscribe. If you've not already, hit subscribe. It is coming, I promise. So Leica Summicron 35mm lenses are small, and so is the rigid lens. The Light Lens Lab replica weighs, taking my notes, 206 grams, but the collapsible weighs even less at only 135 grams. So let's now go through the pros and cons of the collapsible and the rigid. If we cover the collapsible lens first, the biggest pro, the size. Once this lens is collapsed, it is absolutely tiny. The lighter weight is already mentioned. The smaller collapsible version gives you the same optical performance as the rigid version, but there is a caveat. I'll get to that in the cons in a second. And you have the closer focus distance of 0.5 meters, which is useful, especially if you're using mirrorless cameras. What about the cons? Now, the problem is the pros list is this long. The cons list is this lens is not perfect. Some things they've now fixed. Some things are always going to be a bit of a pain. Number one, because it's collapsible, there is a chance you don't fully lock it out. And that means you could get blurry photos if you're not smart and you don't chimp. I did a whole video on this where I accidentally didn't have the lens fully extended. I didn't chimp, and so some of my photos are out of focus. Problem number two, looking on the top of the lens, there's no aperture mark telling you what aperture you're at. Why would you release a lens that doesn't have an aperture scale like you've got on, say, Voigtlander lenses or Leica lenses? Next, when you try to tune your aperture to, say, set it from 2 to 2.8, the whole lens barrel rotates, but the aperture doesn't move. So that could also frustrate you probably really quickly. It can get a bit frustrating, especially if you're someone that changes aperture quite a lot. Next, as already mentioned, this lens has no filter thread, so you can't attach colour filters, let's say shooting black and white film. Now, that being said, they have now just released a lens hood to be supplied with all future 35 f2 8-element collapsible lenses, and it's got a little screw mark to mark your aperture, and it's a threaded hood, so you can now attach filters. It's a 43mm hood, and the great news is this hood will even fit your Elcan if you're an Elcan fan, and it will also fit lenses like the Leica Summicron 50 f2 vintage collapsible lens. The downside is mine's no longer around. After dropping my camera a few weeks ago, I asked a girl in the street if I could take a picture, and I'm not very good at that, and she said yes. I was so shocked. I was like fumbling around and swapped to my digital camera to take a picture and didn't zip up my bag, and my nice film camera fell out. Thankfully, the hood took all the damage, so I'm not someone that normally uses a hood, but there are big benefits from using a hood because it completely protected this really fairly pristine Leica camera, so I've got to be really thankful. If you've already got this lens, I think Light Lens Lab are going to send you a hood for free. I'm not 100%. If you buy this lens from, say, today onwards, all these lenses are now supplied with this hood as standard, so that fixes you can now use filters, and you now know what aperture number you're at, rather than me using a pencil to pencil on my marking so I knew what aperture I was at. So that's fixed 2 of the problems. Now, sadly, there are even more problems, so I will continue with my problem list. Normally, on most lenses, when you look onto the top of the lens, you can see obviously your aperture, and you can see your focus scale or distance scale on the top of the lens. With the collapsible lens, the focus scale is on the front of the body, similar to, say, I believe the Leica M 50 3.5, which means if you're a street shooter, you can't just quickly look down and be like, yep, 2 meters, take my shot. The second thing is the lens has got the old-fashioned focus tab and focus infinity lock. Some people might like that, some people may not. I think modern focus tabs are faster to use. I'll get onto the tab bit when we talk about the rigid lens. And final point, the off-the-shelf, the collapsible 8-element lens comes with a built-in UV filter. Now, one of my smart patrons also bought this lens, Toby in Germany, and when we were at the meetup in Italy, he had his lens with the filter removed, and this does have a few benefits, and I'll show you that when we get to the photo section. So just be aware that this lens comes with a UV filter off the shelf, and you will need to get a tool to remove it if you want to remove it. I've just left mine on, but yeah, just so you're aware. What about the rigid lens? So using the rigid lens yesterday, I was teaching, as I say, the Leica workshop with Larry, and we were walking around Brick Lane in London doing a bit of street photography. First things I noticed, pros, you now have a modern tab, like on the, say, Leica Summicron lenses, where you just rest your finger in the tab. And it's really easy to have like 3 positions in your head to know your zone focusing, and then it's really easy to zone focus. The rigid one has a normal design, like a Summicron lens or Voigtlander lens, where your aperture is very easy to move and you can see it from the top of the lens, and your focus scale is easy to see and on the top of the lens. Now, what about the cons of the rigid version? I'd say the first con, it's slightly bigger than the collapsible. I'm just a sucker for really small lenses. It's maybe 60-70% heavier than the collapsible. It's got a pink, like semi-transparent dot on the side instead of a red dot. Normally they're either red or white dots. I didn't quite understand. And really the only real con in using the lens is it's got an infinity lock. It's like a tab, a bit like the Leica Q tab, where you've got like a button on the tab, and so you have to press the button to unlock it. And I felt that caught me out quite a lot doing street photography. So I just want to say a huge thanks to my awesome patrons. Okay, now let's look at some sample photos. Okay, let's first take a look at some recent photos that I shot in London, shot with the rigid version of the lens. Remember, both lenses are optically identical. Colours of this lens are really nice. These photos are not processed, no presets added. And I just added a slight bit of sharpening actually, just to make them a bit more realistic. So this is the photo with no flare. This is the same photo when shooting towards the light. Again, here you can see the effect of flare. And now here's a test photo I thought I'd use for various things. First, here you can see the vignetting. Then if we compare f2 to f5.6, you can see if we zoom in the corners, the sharpness does increase by 5.6. But in the center at f2, it's already pretty decent. Now, what about the collapsible lens? As I say, it's been with me everywhere: America, Poland, Italy, various places. Here's me using the lens on the Leica SL in Poland during a photo shoot. You can see the full photo shoot with Sophia on the Patreon if you want to see the full lens shoot. These photos are shot wide open so you can see the bokeh. There is no editing at all, not even any sharpening. And you can see it's a really nice lens wide open for portraits. But here you can see the flare. Now this is particular flare from the additional UV filter. You won't get this on the rigid version, and if you take the filter off you won't get it also on the collapsible. Next, I also had the Summicron with me. So here are photos with the Summicron. You can see the different flare pattern for the Summicron, and they're also slightly warmer. So back to the Light Lens Lab. Here's the flare without the distraction of the model. Sun stars are possible if you stop down. And here's bokeh again without the distraction of the model. Okay, these are some photos from various other photo shoots, edited with my Mr. Leica presets using various cameras. And here's a few black and white sample photos too. I really like the black and white images from this lens. Now, what about film? As you know, I love film, and I've just bought a enlarger, so there'll be more coming on film. As mentioned, I took this lens with me to America, and I was shooting it on the Leica M4P with Kodak Ektar 100 film. I'll probably do a full video using the M4P in America, so subscribe if you want to see that. Okay, I just want to explain a few things on the table. Some of them are really exciting, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. I'm easily pleased. As mentioned, Light Lens Lab have released a new hood. This now fits other lenses as well, so that's really useful. Just to note, you can also use the IROOA hood on all mentioned lenses, and it will clip on. The only difference is you're not able to see your aperture marking, and the new hood is a lot smaller than the IROOA hood. Now, the second super exciting bit of news from Light Lens Lab is, has anybody spotted this? I tried to leave some teasers in some of my videos. Light Lens Lab have released an exact replica, more or less, of the original super small compact metal viewfinder. So this is a 1931 Leica camera, my daily carry, and it's got a fixed 50mm viewfinder. If you then try and buy a viewfinder today, viewfinders are this big, and it totally trashes the nice small size of your nice camera. When Light Lens Lab wrote to me and said, we've just made a 35mm finder the same as the 50mm finder on the Barnett cameras, my eyes just lit up. It's like I've been asking Voigtlander to make a small, compact, high-quality finder for so long, and Light Lens Lab have come up trumps. But there is a massive problem, and I'm kind of super happy, but super sad at the same time, frustrated. Let me explain. So this is a Leica 1C, a stripped back Leica 3. This finder fits this camera. It also fits my Leica 2F, for example. But it does not fit this camera because it looks like it's a little bit too deep, the foot. And the biggest problem for Light Lens Lab, as I've written to them and told them, this finder will also not fit Leica M3 cameras. As I'm sure you know, Leica M3 cameras don't have a 35mm frame line. By putting this tiny little high quality finder on your M3, it almost adds no size at all, and then you can use 35mm lenses on your M3. But they designed it so it doesn't fit an M3. I've written to them and I'm like, guys, you need to make it fit more cameras, otherwise you're not going to be able to sell as many units as you want to. I'm trying to think of them in business side of it, and then from our point of view we can't use it, so it's equally frustrating. It's here's an amazing finder, but you can't use it. Hopefully they're going to modify it so the version 2 will be able to be used on everything, is my plan. I can show you the problem. So this has got a square foot, whereas Voigtlander finders have got a angled foot. And this allows you to slide it into, say, like an M camera, and it pushes down the little contacts, allowing it to fit. The same as this very nice super compact light meter from KEKS. I can put a link below if you want a super tiny light meter. This fits on these cameras. This has also got the little triangles cut out, which means it will fit, whereas this one, it doesn't have the little triangles cut out, so it doesn't fit. So I've asked Light Lens Lab to redesign it, to cut the corners off, so then hopefully it'll fit pretty much all Leica cameras. Now, to add to that, this is only a 35mm finder. I've also asked them to make us a 28mm finder and a 50mm finder, especially 28, because if you're a 28mm lover and you love small Barnett cameras, you'll be able to use the brand new Voigtlander Color Scope 28 2.8 with a new small finder on a Barnett camera. As soon as I find more information, I'll obviously let you know. I will put a link below to Light Lens Lab website, and you can get I think 5% off all Light Lens Lab stuff using the link. So if you're going to buy hoods, lenses, finders, anything, get some money off and use the link below. Okay, so in summary, should you buy the Light Lens Lab 35 f2 8 element? And if so, do you get the rigid or the collapsible, or do you just go on eBay and try and find the original version 1 Summicron? Now, just a quick note on the Summicron. The rendering and colours from the Light Lens Lab lenses is cooler than the Summicron lenses. I quite like the warmer colours from the Summicron. So if you're a colour photographer and say you shoot portraits like me, you may prefer Summicron colours compared to the Light Lens Lab colours. If you shoot black and white, or if you're happy to move the warm slider on Lightroom across from cooler to warmer, then you can use the Light Lens Lab lenses. If you want the smallest possible setup, get the collapsible. If you want to focus to 0.5 meters, say with a mirrorless camera, or with your VisoFlex on an M camera, get the collapsible. But if you're a die-hard 35mm shooter and you want one good 35mm lens to do everything, and you do street photography, I'd maybe recommend getting the rigid version. This is a chance the infinity lock is going to annoy the heck out of you. Then you might be better off to just pay a bit more and get a Summicron lens instead of the Light Lens Lab lens. In terms of rendering, I think, as I say, other than the colours, I think both are reasonably similar. Different people have showed different results, but as shown from my test photos, you can get really nice pictures, and yeah, I've been totally happy with the photos. I continue to use the collapsible because it allows me to carry the lens everywhere, and I enjoy using it on both Barnett cameras and any other camera. If you're a 50mm guy, you might still like this lens. Just mount it on a little CL, and it gives you a super compact carry around 50mm equivalent. It's brilliant, so no complaints. As mentioned, if you want to see how the performance compares to other lenses, including the Ultron, watch this video next.